Okay, welcome. In this brief video, I'm going to introduce the basis from which we will be measuring physiological signals in this class. And the basis is electricity, and specifically is the electricity that's inherent in our bodies. So we'll be looking at electrophysiology. So as I mentioned, as we know, the human body actually generates its own electricity. We don't think about this much because it's not on the order of magnitude that you typically see in your outlet that you plug in or your phone, etc. But it's there and it can be measured, and it helps tell us things about not only the physiology, but since we're in this class in the psychology department, hopefully by extension measuring certain aspects of physiology, we can understand something of what's going on in their psychology and their psyche. So this electricity is always flowing as long as we're alive. And the unit of measure, the basic unit of measure is the volt. So typical electrical measure. It's not, the human signal isn't nearly as big as a volt, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And how that voltage changes over milliseconds and seconds, etc., is referred to as the signal. So a lot of times in this class we'll be talking about what does the signal look like, look at the signal and read the signal, etc. So as I mentioned, the human electrical signal is tiny. So in terms of volts, we're talking about a millionth of a volt. So it's not the kind of thing that could be measured with typical electrical measuring equipment not suited for the human body. So we need the equipment and the software to help us do that measurement. So it can measure something as tiny as the volts coming out of the body. It will amplify that signal so we can read it. It'll also filter out the noise so that other electrical static going on out there is not messing with the signal to the best of the ability of the software. And then it'll convert that information to numbers, and then ultimately those numbers can be plotted in a graph. So that's what we're going to be looking at in this class. I've included a couple of links that give you a little bit of an animation of the electrical impulse, and this is something that's probably a review or a refresher from Dr. Friedman's class. It seems to be one of those very few 5% overlaps you'll have between the two classes. So knowing what you know from that class and maybe watching a few of these animations, you can have in your mind an image of how that electricity is flowing through the body.